Hey guys, hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new here. So I caught on really quickly that my mic was muted. So I know, guys, I'm sorry. Right as I came in here, I dropped my drink. I ran in my house to get me a drink, came and dropped it. And because I was running late, I just picked it up and opened it, and then it spewed everywhere. And I guess in the middle of trying to clean everything up, I hit the mute button. I'm sorry, guys. Anyways, hey, everyone. Nappy said, never liked Ryan. Last night episode proved to me why. There's some people that don't like Ryan. I get it. I'm seeing there's some flags with Ryan. I see what you guys are talking about. Like, there's definitely some flags. I know a lot of flags with Gypsy too, but definitely some flags with Ryan. Anyways, you guys, we're going to be doing our recap tonight, and I wanted to do it earlier today. But listen, when you got 6 kids in the house, you can't do nothing on time. You can't do nothing on time. So here we are at 9 o'clock at night doing our recap. I'm sorry, you guys. So red flags everywhere, everywhere. I know, right? So let's go ahead. Let's get into this week's episode of Gypsy Blanchard, Life After Lockup. That's not what I meant to do. It's obviously season 1, which I do think we're going to get a season 2. I don't know this for a fact, but I think we're going to get a season 2. Because I was watching Ken live on TikTok the other day, and I uploaded his TikTok here. But Gypsy, like, when it was so weird because Ryan was like, "How did we find out she was pregnant?" And she's like, "Don't tell them. Like, they have to watch the show to find out." And he was like, "Oh, you'll have to watch to find out." And I'm like, "We only have 2 episodes left. Like, surely within the next 2 episodes, she's not going to be pregnant." So I bet they're gonna film and we're gonna have a season 2. But what's crazy is she had already told us how she found out. That she didn't think she was pregnant because she had been to the doctor and she wasn't ovulating correctly. So the doctor was gonna put her on some ovulation medication or something or another. So she already told us like how she found out. But either way, I think we're gonna get another season. But this is season 1, episode 7. It's titled Are You Happy? So let's get into it, guys. I don't think it's on YouTube yet. I don't think I haven't seen it on YouTube yet. All right, so previously, on previous episodes, Gypsy is released from prison. Tons of Obviously, she realizes there's tons of media attention surrounding her release. Gypsy and Ryan are irresponsible while doing the grown up. So Gypsy has to take the plan B. Let me make my chair a little taller. Wish I was a little bit taller. Ever heard that song? I used to sing it to my brother because he was short and it was funny. I don't know why I haven't thought to sing it to Sean, but that song says, "I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl who looked good. I would call her." Y'all ever heard that? I don't know where I heard it from. Anyways, so Gypsy and Ryan are irresponsible while doing the grown up. So Gypsy has to take the plan B. Ryan gets upset that Gypsy told her sister about the little slip up on camera because he's a teacher and felt like she was sharing too much. Gypsy filmed Ryan having, I guess, a meltdown. He said he was just expressing his feelings about him being upset that she shared this info in front of the cameras. She took her phone out and, like, the cameras were not there. She took her cell phone out to record this. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, Ryan and Gypsy looked at a venue to have a real wedding. Christy let Gypsy know that Ken had been reaching out, that Ken missed Gypsy and regretted breaking up with her. All right. Gypsy canceled the plans for a wedding due to it not being the right time. Gypsy had got her hair done, she got her teeth fixed, and she scheduled her rhinoplasty surgery. Ryan and Gypsy continue to have issues. Gypsy telling Ryan that she misses Ken. Ryan telling her to get over it and let it go. Gypsy is starting to feel like Ryan is a little controlling. Ryan says he knows due to Gypsy's trauma and everything that she's went through, he has to be careful with the way that he treats her. Gypsy tells producers that if she feels like Ryan is trying to control her, she will leave. Gypsy went to her parents without Ryan at the end of last week's episode. She decided she was going to go visit without Ryan to get some one on one time with her father. Ryan did not necessarily like that. When she was there, he called and wanted to FaceTime, and she told him no. And he was like, is there somebody there that you don't want me to see? She ends up hanging up on Ryan. And as she hangs up, she was like, you know what? It's kind of nice not always having him around. So here we are on, like I said, season 1, episode 7, titled Are You Happy? It starts off, I need to make these little clips a little longer because, yeah. It starts off with Gypsy. She is still at her parents' house. She says her parents' house. It's technically her dad and her stepmom, but she says my parents. She tells her parents that she and Ryan are having an argument and that he sent her a text that she is wanting to share with them. She lets her dad read said text. And this is the text. It says, I'm going to be honest about something. I could really give a maybe crap, but the other word about your dad's one-on-one time with you right now. I want to love on my way. Ha ha. That is some passive aggressive BS to the fullest extent. Like that's super no. Don't put a ha ha back then. You that was rude. Anyways, Gypsy's fine dad was I'm just kidding. Gypsy's dad was reading this and he couldn't even finish it. So he starts, he's like, I'm gonna be honest about something. And then his voice kind of cracks, like it hurts his feeling to even read it out loud. So he don't even read the end out loud. He just reads it to himself. And he is shocked. Like the dad, Rod is shocked. And he's like, I can't believe Ryan would say that. And he says, is this Ryan's true colors coming out? Is this like the real Ryan? Is this what we're seeing here? Gypsy tells them that when things are good with Ryan, they're really good. But Ryan has a selfish side of him when it comes to her and her time. She tells them about how Ryan has asked for FaceTime calls while she's been there, and she's refused, telling him that they will do a FaceTime call later. And he asked, well, do you have somebody over there that you don't want me to see? She says she felt like Ryan is implying that Kim is at their house, which Rod is like, wow, Ryan thinks we would allow that. And I'm like, I don't think Rod would allow that, but I absolutely think Christy would allow that. Sorry, guys. Okay. So I'm like, I don't think Rod would allow Ken to come, but I think Christy would in a millisecond. Who here thinks Christy would allow Ken to come stay the weekend at their house with Gypsy, even though Gypsy and Ryan were still together? Yep. Raise your hand. Me. Anyways, but I really don't think Rod would. So he's like, wow, Ryan thinks we would even allow that. Gypsy told her dad that she told Ryan she wasn't dealing with that kind of BS. And Rod was like, you know what? I'm proud of you for sticking up with yourself. They're friends. I know. That's weird. After that, Gypsy says she understands that Ryan is insecure, but to basically accuse her of cheating on him when she was just visiting her parents is too much. Mm, Jana, that's interesting. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. After that, we see Gypsy doing like I'm gonna say a confessional because in basically it's just where they're off just with production, just talking to the producers, and the producers ask them questions and they put some of them on the show. I always say in a confessional. So in a little confessional, Gypsy says she loves Ryan, but they have been going through the same cycle for 3 years. She said, I get a little freedom, Ryan gets jealous and possessive. And I'm like, 3 years? What freedom have you been getting in prison? Like, has it been that long? Or has it been like the past few months since you've been out of prison? Because, like, I don't know. Maybe if she becomes friend, maybe if she gets a new bunkie and she seems super close to it, Ryan gets jealous. I don't know. Yeah, but she's like, it's been the same cycle for 3 years. I get a little freedom. He gets jealous and possessive. And I'm not down for that. Then Rod tells Gypsy, he's like, listen, Ryan knew what he was getting into when he got with you. He knew that you had been confined like all of your life. He understood that. So he should have known that when you got out of prison, you were gonna want a little freedom, and he should be okay with that. Yet I do feel like Blood Moon, you're correct. I feel like Gypsy already had one foot out the door as soon as Ken became involved. I agree there. I think that made Gypsy look at everything a lot like when later on in the episode when Ryan's like, "That's revenue," and she was like, "I don't care." I think if Ken was not involved and she was still loving her husband the way that she was before Ken become involved, I think she would have been like, "I know what you're saying. I know. Let me pull it out of there, and then I'm gonna shut it down." Um, so yeah, he's like, he knows that you've been confined all this time. Like, he should understand that when you got out of prison, you would want a little bit of freedom, and he should be okay giving you that. Gypsy tells Rod and Christy that she has this inner voice telling her, you know what you should do. She says, but she knows the journey there will be long and difficult. I don't know if like that voice is telling her to get a divorce. I'm like, what's the voice saying? Tell me. We need to know. I think that's what she was implying, though. Now, Gypsy prepares to leave, and her dad does his little confessional where he says that his gut reaction after seeing the text from Ryan is that he gives Gypsy and Ryan a 50-50 chance of making it, that he thinks it will be harder than he expected for them, like initially. Like he's like, I already thought it was going to be hard, like her getting out of prison, like her life before. I already thought it would be difficult. But seeing the way that Ryan is acting makes me feel like it's going to be even harder than I thought. He said Ryan will have to give her a little bit of freedom. He says Ryan's going to have to man up and do what he needs to do. I love their accent. I'm from Louisiana, but not as south as they are, but I do love that Cajun accent. And never mind, I'll tell y'all this later on. Okay, so Rod and Christy take Gypsy home, and that night, Gypsy records herself crying. She says that when she got home, Ryan had bought her flowers and told her that he was sorry. She says, but she don't know what to do about it. Then we see Ryan doing his little confessional where he gives his side of how things went. So he's like, Gypsy went to spend some time with Rod and Christy alone. He said that he knew that Rod had not had that one on one time with Gypsy. And he said, I guess the times that I was there, I kind of got in the way of them spending that one on one time with each other. So I understood. Like, I didn't like it, but I understood. Ryan then said he knows the comment that he made about Rod was wrong. He knows it hit a trauma trigger for Gypsy. And he says, I hate that we fought the first weekend that she was away since she's been out of prison. He says, it was just a bad weekend though, but we've made up and everything's good now. And I was like, you are downplaying this, Ryan. I felt like Ryan definitely downplayed, like, oh, like first off to say, well, Rod felt like he hadn't got any one-on-one time with her because I guess all the times I was there, I was in the way. Nobody said you're in the way, but they have waited on her for 8 years. You've only known her for 3. So I hate when people do that. Like nobody said you were in the way, but if you're there, they're just not getting one-on-one time with her. It's not that you're in the way. So for him to say, like, oh, I guess I was in the way. No, no. It's just that's her dad, and he's never had a relationship with her. Rod has never had that time with his child. So now he should be able to, and it shouldn't be, oh, I guess I was in the way. No, no. Just allow it. It's nothing. And then he's like, so I understood, but you really didn't know because you even said like you've made these comments about us. You really didn't really understand, right? You've made comments that would make her feel some type of way. Anyways, he also says, oh, but we made up now and now we're great. And that really wasn't the case. We then see Gypsy do her little confessional where she says that when she got home, she opened the door and Ryan had this big bouquet of flowers waiting on her. She says she told Ryan that he was being selfish to say what he said about her dad. She said Ryan told her that he was joking and he was like, I said, ha ha, remember? And she was like, yeah, that's not the point though. She told him it was wrong and he shouldn't have said it. But he did she's like, "But he did apologize. He said he was sorry, and, I guess that's that." The producers then asked Gypsy, "So how are things going now?" And Gypsy says, "Things are going good, but ask somebody that is certified in body language." I did not feel like that was like a genuine things are good. 'Cause she was just like, "Things are good." She wasn't like, "Oh, things are good." Like, "Yeah, things are good now." Ryan does have a job. He's a teacher. All right. I am watching it on Follow. That's how I watch it. Okay. Back at Ryan. He's doing a second part of his confessional. And he says, what I love about Gypsy is that when we have problems, we learn from them and we grow from them. Or we learn from them and we grow in our relationship. That's what he said. All right. So the next day, Gypsy has recorded a TikTok video that she did while Ryan was at work. So Ryan comes home and he's like, "Let me watch this TikTok video. Let's see what all the hype is about." So he sits down. The title of the TikTok is called Taking Accountability. I thought it was a pretty good video, which to be honest, I only saw a little piece of it, but it was basically Gypsy saying, the night that my mother died, basically two lives were taken because like my codependent will never get out of prison. And it was because of something that like I did. So to me, it seemed like she took accountability for like being the mastermind behind what she got Nick to do. Um, and she was like, for anybody that thinks that I wasn't taking accountability, I'm sorry. Like I am. I thought it was a pretty good video. She did talk about the stipulations of her parole, how she cannot be in contact with her codependent and things like that. She talked about that on this video. So Ryan watches it and Gypsy says she felt like two lives were taken because of her. She says social media is a doorway to hell. In the video, she says she contemplates deleting her social media every few weeks, and she apologizes to everyone she offended by her seeming to not take accountability. Ryan tells Gypsy that he's proud of her. He says she says that she is tired of having to watch what she says. She says that she is trying so hard to not make any mistakes and get in trouble with her parole officer. She says she feels like she gets lost in social media sometimes. So sometimes she thinks maybe she should delete it. Ryan tells her that he is right there with her on this journey with her. And he has always wanted her to be herself because she is great. He then tells her, "We will talk about you deleting your social media later. But right now, you're not going to delete it." Or he says, "But right now, we're not deleting it." Gypsy says, "I said in a couple of months." And he says, "Well, we'll talk about it." And she responds by saying, "Well, I'll just delete it and not tell you." And he says, "No, you won't." And I'm like, that's okay. I feel two different ways about this. You guys tell me how you feel about this. So there was this one side of me that was like, it's her social media. If she wants to delete it, she can delete it. She ain't gotta tell you nothing, nada, nothing. But then I was like, he's a teacher who for the past 3 years, he has put money on her books. He has, when she got home, she had clothes. He spent money for a cell phone, shoes, X, Y, and Z. And that is her income. And her probation officer, parole officer, when you get off and you're on parole, you're supposed to get a job. So there was this one side of me that was like, it's none of his business. If she wants to delete it, she can delete it. But then I was like, but if it's her job, you definitely need to consult with your partner, your husband, before you just quit a job. You know what I'm saying? Right? If you look at you guys tell me if that makes sense to y'all. If y'all see what I'm saying, if y'all see what I'm saying in that regard, that if it is her job and they were looking to that as such, then she would need to at minimum say, "Hey, I'm thinking of quit my job." You know? Uh, right, Jana, I agree. Or it's like, "Hey, I'm gonna delete it and I'll do something else." Like I know I was making and let me tell you guys, I guarantee she's making bank on that TikTok. Yes. All right, so let's continue. Do you guys get that point? Like if it is oh, and the show is her job too. Yeah, so I mean, but I was just thinking about it like, I can't just up and quit YouTube, even though it's YouTube and it's social media. I can't just up and quit. I would have to go talk to Sean and be like, hey, so I think I'm going to quit social media. If I just quit and woke up tomorrow and didn't come out here to work, he would be like, what are you doing? And I'd be like, oh, I quit. He would be like, what? Uh, you know, I should have told me. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I get that aspect of it. But I don't even know if that's the way he was looking at it. I don't know. Either way, let's continue. 3 hours later, Gypsy is on the phone with her parole officer because somebody has reported her. We hear the officer over the phone tell her, "You have the rest of your life to make as many documentaries as and books as you want." And then we can't hear anything after that. She's like, "Yes, sir, I understand." I think what her parole officer was saying, you have as many you just need to do your parole, do the years that you're on parole, and then after that, you can do whatever you want. After you get done with parole and you get off parole, you have as many years as you want to do documentaries, books, whatever. But right now, you need to like toe a specific line. So I think that's what he was saying. Like right now, you don't need to be doing anything. Do what you need to do. After you get off parole, you have the rest of your life to do documentaries and books. So she gets off the phone with her parole officer and she tells Ryan, she's like, I have to delete my social media. Somebody reported me saying that the video that I put up about taking accountability, that I was basically trying to communicate with my co-defendant, which is obviously against, she can't do that. Which, like I said, I didn't watch the video except in the show. But what I saw in the show, I'm like, how is she trying to contact her co-defendant? He's in prison. Like, there was nothing that I heard her say. There was nothing that I heard her say that I felt like she was like trying to, but people are crazy, like I've seen like call CPS like over like nonsense before. So she's like, yep, I'm gonna need to take down my social media. Somebody reported me, the video I put up saying I was trying to contact or communicate with Nicholas. So Ryan's like, well, just delete the video. Don't delete your whole TikTok account. And he's like, that's revenue, Gypsy. And Gypsy yells, I don't care. Ryan's like, well, did you tell him that? Did you tell him that it was revenue? And she says, I don't care. And he tells her, he says, well, just delete it then. Well, pull the revenue out first. But I'm like, I'm with Ryan. I'm like, take it out. Take the money out before you delete it. Angie, you have a good question. I guess my question is, why is she on social media now then? To be quite honest, that's the thing, is she's all over social media now. This was right after she got out, like the first time someone reported her over her social media. So I guess maybe it was like the first time she feared, oh my God, I can't even put up a video and people not take it the wrong way. But I guess probably after that, she got more and more used to it and was just like, you know what? They can't arrest me for having a social media. As long as I watch what I say, like, yeah, they may call and report me, but at some point, my parole officer will be like, "This is BS," and probably not even call me about it. Kiki says, "Not gonna lie, social media doesn't seem like an appropriate job for a felon." I don't know. What is an appropriate job for a felon? I don't know. Who knows? I'm just like they want you to work though. So, all right. After that, let's see. So he's like, I get it. Delete the video, just not your whole social media. Or take the revenue out before you delete it. Gypsy starts crying, shaking her head, and says, it's revenue. What the F word? And she walks outside to smoke. So Ryan goes outside to console her. And he tells her, he's like, Gypsy, that video was great. He's like, you shouldn't have to take it down. He was like, I can't believe that you're going to have to delete it. He's like, but if you have to delete it, then delete it. but it was a good video. Like, it's okay. He's like trying to console her or whatever. She's like, I feel like I'm not going to make it. She's crying. She's like, I feel like I'm not going to make it. Everyone just wants to send me back to jail. She says, I think I'm doing right. I think I'm doing right and I'm doing everything wrong. That's kind of a confusing statement. But either way, Ryan asked her, Ryan tells her, he's like, you're going to be okay. You're going to make it. Everything's going to be okay. And then he says, Gypsy, what exactly did your parole officer say? Did he tell you you had to delete your social media? Gypsy said, he told me that it wasn't in my best interest to keep my social media up. Ryan says, I don't want you to delete it just because one person called and complained on you. He said, if you would have done something wrong in the video, I would understand, but you didn't. And I do kind of understand that. Like, don't cave to one person. Like, one person's going to call and complain on you, and now you're taking it down. I do kind of understand that. Oh, my computer. All right. Um, they go back inside, and Ryan tells Gypsy, he's like, you have no directive, you have no direct order from your PO telling you that you can't have a social media, but you have been told that you have to get a job. So Gypsy, this can be your job. Gypsy told Ryan, she's like, it's not a good idea for me to post on social media anymore. She says, I'm going to heed those words regardless of what you have to say, Ryan. She then asked Ryan, she's like, would you put a price on my freedom? And he quickly said, no, of course not. She tells Ryan, she says, I'm just going to sit and think about things for a minute. So I will say that when she asked, would you put a price on my freedom? He was like, no, no, of course not. He looked legit in saying that. Like, well, I think he obviously, when you're on TikTok and you become monetized, it keeps up with how much you make. Like, you can check it every day, right? And it'll tell you, you made this amount of money. So more than likely, he saw the money. He saw the thousands of dollars accruing in a very short period and thought, oh my God, I'm a teacher. This can change our lives. So was like, this is good. But I do think he loved her. Like, I do think he loved her. And versus losing her, I'm sure he would have been like, okay with her deleting the social media versus losing her. All right. So let's see. Yeah, she tells Ryan she's just going to sit and think about things for a minute. 2 days later, Ryan and Gypsy go out on a dinner date. After they sit down, Ryan tells Gypsy, he's like, you know what? I want to take you somewhere. I want to do something. He's like, we go to the mall all the time. You know, when you were in prison, we made all these plans. We said we were going to go here and we were going to do this, but like we really haven't done that much. Um, he brings up, he's like, you know, maybe we should go to New Orleans. He's and he starts talking about all the things they could do for fun while in New Orleans. And she's like, yeah, I agree. He then says the Dega house would have been awesome. So that was the wedding venue. I think I'm saying it right. The Dega house. He's like, that really would have been awesome. Gypsy agrees, saying, yeah, it was really pretty. And Ryan says, we should have done it. Like, meaning got married. Gypsy responds, telling Ryan, yeah, but we just had too much going on and we weren't ready yet. Ryan then says, well, I would still say yes to marrying you again. Would you? Gypsy responds, but it's kind of like this half smile. And she's like, yeah. And Ryan's like, so you would remarry me? Gypsy looks very uncomfortable and asks Ryan, she's like, can maybe we not talk about this on camera? And Ryan's like, okay. So is that a no? You wouldn't marry me? She says, no, it's not a no. It's just one of those things that's like, I don't think we have to discuss this on camera. You can ask me when we're not filming. Some things can just be between us. And I'm like, yeah, because that's the answer is no. Because if you were like, yeah, of course I would marry you. You wouldn't care to say, like, you're already married. So why is this a question that doesn't need to be asked on camera, but you talking about his pullout game is like open to the public? You know what I'm saying? Like, what? Like, to me, I'm like, yeah, no, that's something you shouldn't talk about considering he's a teacher. This, your already husband saying, would you remarry me if we had the chance? Like, unless you wouldn't, then it's one of those things you don't want to talk about on camera. But if you would, then it would be fine. Either way, she's like, yeah, some things can be between us, right? Thankfully, the waitress comes at the right time to bring them their food. Kind of interrupts, what was happening. Her body language was very off. Like, you could absolutely tell that she obviously at that point would not remarry Ryan. Yeah, she's discussed way worse on camera. Okay. So, after they get their food, Ryan asked Gypsy if she has felt cooped up any this week. He's like, so have you felt cooped up any this week? Gypsy doesn't answer him. She just keeps eating. So Ryan's like, yeah, no. Gypsy says, well, our lives are just very cookie cutter right now. And he's like, what do you mean? She says, well, it's just very routine. And he's like, well, that's not true. That's not true at all. We do a lot. Gypsy doesn't respond. After a minute, Ryan excuses himself to go to the bathroom. So, one thing, this is why Gypsy should not have been married until years after she got out of prison. Because, yes, life as a wife is very cookie cutter. Life as a husband is very cookie cutter. It is routine. When you are two adults with a job, with a puppy, it's a routine. And Gypsy coming out of prison for, unaliving your mom, you need a routine. You don't need to be out there wilding out. You know what I'm saying? Because who knows what kind of trouble you can get into if you aren't on a routine. Because he wanted her to say he was, yeah, I agree, Nat. I agree. I think you're right. I do think he loves when she pumps him up on camera. I absolutely agree to that. Um, so, unless you work at making it not cookie cutter, exactly. Right, Dana, exactly. Right, right. Right. So he gets up and excuses himself to go to the bathroom. Now, while he was going to the bathroom, the producer asked Gypsy how she's feeling. And she says, you know what? I'm just in a mood tonight. And I'm like, did you talk to Ken? Is that why? Have you talked to Ken? I think she had, honestly. So they leave the restaurant. They are headed home. And I got something to say. Y'all. So the other day I was actually in Lake Charles, and when they were leaving the restaurant, I saw the name of the restaurant and I saw a high school that they passed. And I was like, oh my God, I think I was just like close to there the other day. So I Googled where I went in Lake Charles versus the school because I couldn't find the restaurant. I tried to look for the restaurant, couldn't find it. So I looked up the school, and where I was at the other day was just miles away from the school. So it would have been close to the restaurant. So where I had to go in Lake Charles was in the same area to where Ryan obviously lives. Not gonna lie, when I was in Lake Charles, I was looking at apartment complexes. I'm like, does that look like the one that I've seen on his TikTok? Does that look? I'm looking at cars, like, is that his car? Weird. I'm like stalkerish. Anyways, let's continue. That's what happens whenever you become a YouTuber and you cover celebrities and you're in their neck of the woods. You're like looking for their car. Anyways, let's continue. So they leave the restaurant, they're headed home. Ryan notices that it looks like Gypsy is on the verge of crying. I know, right? Ryan notices that it looks like Gypsy is like on the verge of crying. So he asks her, he's like, what's going on? Is something wrong? And she says no. She's like, I'm fine. And he says, okay, I'm just gonna leave it as you don't feel good. And she says, okay. He then brings up, he's like, every time we go out to eat, like something seems wrong with you. He asks her, he's like, do you have a problem eating in public? And she says, no, that she doesn't mind eating in public. And he says, well, maybe it's just you can't stand going on a date with me. Like maybe that's the problem. Uh, you're not in a good mood because you're with me. And he says, you know what? Maybe I'm not what you envisioned. And what's crazy is Gypsy don't say anything. Like she's not like, no, I'm just not feeling good. No, I just have a headache. She don't say nothing. And I'm like, well, that tells you there because hello, like if it wasn't you, she would tell you. She wouldn't even want you to think that. But her not saying nothing tells you, yep, it's absolutely you. So after a minute of silence, Gypsy asks Ryan if he is happy. And he darn near yells, yes. I don't know why you think I'm not. And all of a sudden, you're not because you think I'm not. And I'm like, that's not why she's not happy. It's not because she don't think you are. It's because she isn't. And she's trying to. Gypsy wasn't happy, so she was hoping Ryan wasn't, right? Because she's like, I'm not happy. And maybe if he's not happy, he'll agree for us to get a divorce. But no, he wants to be with you. So no, he's not going to say he's not happy. But I think that's what she was like. She's like, are you happy? Hoping he would say no. All right. I don't think she has her driver's license. Gypsy doesn't have her license, right? Um, she says, so he's like, I don't know why you think I'm not happy. And then all of a sudden, you're not happy. She says, maybe I'm not. And Ryan says, okay, well, tell me why. Gypsy says she doesn't. She doesn't know why she's unhappy. She says, but sometimes it feels like her and Ryan are two different people. Ryan kind of laughs and says, we are different people, but we're not headed towards different things. He says, it's okay to be different, Gypsy. Obviously we missed something because it goes from him like trying to console her a little bit, like, yeah, we are two, even kind of laughing, like, yeah, we're two different people, but that's okay. We're not moving in two different directions. To then him saying, go call Ken. I'm like, what did we miss? Anybody else notice that? Anybody else notice that it went from him like trying to speak positive to her, like, yeah, we're two different people, but we're not on two different paths. Like, it's okay. Silence. Go call Ken. I'm like, no, they cut something out there. I want to see that footage. Where was it? What happened there? And then he says, you're probably already talking to him anyway. And Gypsy says, I'm not. And Ryan says, you're not. And she says, no. He says, okay, then why aren't you happy? And when did this happen? When did you start feeling like you weren't happy? She doesn't respond. And he says, well, let's do marriage counseling then. Let's try this before we throw in the towel. Gypsy tells Ryan, she says, I'm in therapy. You're in therapy. And he says, I know, but let's go together. Let's go to marriage counseling to see if we can figure this problem out. He says, I don't want you making a rash decision. And he says, she's like, I'm not going to make a rash decision. And he says, Gypsy, you make rash decisions all the time. Um, I'm losing my place. He tells her, you make rash decisions all the time. And he said, we were fine. I don't understand. Like, what happened? We were fine. And Gypsy says, yes, there were times we were fine. As a matter of fact, the majority of the time, we are fine. And Ryan kind of laughs again and says, well, every day isn't going to be great. But if the majority of the days are good, then let's focus on that. He says, but there will be days where you just want to break or you want to get away. And you have to work on those days for it. And then Gypsy says, what if you don't want to work for it? And Ryan says, so you don't want to work at it? Are you saying you don't want to fight for our marriage? Gypsy shakes her head no, that she don't want to fight for their marriage. Ryan asks her kind of to confirm. He's like, you don't? She says no, shakes her head again. And she says, you know I love you, Ryan, but sometimes I think I would be happier somewhere else. And Ryan just says, okay. Gypsy starts crying. And then she says, don't think it doesn't hurt me. but I feel like someone else could give you the love that you deserve. She then tells him, "Please don't think that you've done anything wrong." And then Ryan got out of the car. And I'm like, "Please don't think you've done anything wrong. You literally, like, sold so many stories to TMZ. He's a food hoarder. His closets were disgusting. He snores. Like, he was controlling." Like, when real I mean, yeah, he were the here's the thing. There were absolutely red flags with Ryan. I think Ryan was insecure, controlling. Did it come from her lying to him throughout their relationship when she was in prison and talking to Ken behind his back? Because that was something that happened. Ryan, knew that Gypsy talked to Ken behind his back. He knew that Ken was a real threat. So there were absolutely some things that happened. But if Kim wouldn't have been involved, would she have been this over the relationship? Or if she saw those red flags, could they have potentially with the marriage counseling? I think they could have. I think they could have potentially with the marriage counseling and worked on his and her be honest. He's overbearing. He's controlling. He doesn't have confidence in our relationship. And he could have worked on those things at minimum to give it an honest chance, but she didn't wanna give it an honest chance because she was already, like she was trying to slip out that door, you know what I'm saying? She wanted out. And it could be that's who he is. I mean, yeah. Could therapy change somebody that, like, that's just who they are? I don't know, you know? Alright, so let's continue. He gets out of the car, he does, like, a little confessional at the gas station, at the back of the car. He talks to the producers, he's like, "I wish my wife would stop doing this to me." He says, "Being with someone like her, this happens a lot." He says he knew with her being released, it would be hard on her. He knows she loves him. He says, "That's not even up for debate. She loves me." He says, "But something's wrong because she does this too much." He says, "My heart just gets ripped out and I have to pick it up every time." He says it sucks. He's like, Gypsy goes to her parents or they go out of town to do these interviews, and it's like Disneyland because Gypsy gets all this attention and they get to go do all these fun things. And then they come back home and they go back into a routine. He says that's normal life. He's like, but maybe Gypsy's stuck in fairy tale land because that's what she thinks life is going and running and doing all the time. He's like, I can't give her that. Like, I will have a normal life. She will have to have a normal life. He says he doesn't know what all is at play here. He says Gypsy still mentions her ex quite a bit. He says, I ask her if she's still talking to him, and she says no. He says, and I have to believe that. I have to believe that Gypsy's not talking to Ken. He don't name Ken. He just says, I have to believe that Gypsy's not talking to her ex. Because if I didn't believe her, I would go crazy. And then I would be the crazy, controlling husband. He says he doesn't want to split up, but it's not up to him. He says it's never been up to me. He says Gypsy knows I will always love her. 4 days later, big gap. I'm like, production was there filming this night and didn't come back the next day to see what took place. Why not? Either way, 4 days later, over at Mia's house, Gypsy explained that she packed a bag and went to stay the night at Mia's house. Her plans are for her and Christy to go back to her and Ryan's house, pack more bags. She's going to spend 2 weeks at her parents' house to see where her head is at. She's going to take 2 weeks, a break, and after 2 weeks, see what she's feeling like, how she's feeling, what she wants to do. So she tells Mia and Christy that her marriage was a codependent marriage, that her and Ryan really could not go anywhere without each other because if they did, like they had to speak to each other the whole time. She says that he was codependent on her. She said she wanted them to have a healthy level of boundaries and independence, just like her going to her parents' house. Him making those comments over the fact that like he couldn't go and like, oh, I guess, when I was there. like I got in the way of them having their one-on-one time. And then the way he called her nonstop when she was there and wanted to do FaceTime. She's like, he was very codependent on me. She said, I just wanted to have a healthy level of boundaries in my marriage and I wanted to have a little independence. Now, back in Lake Charles, Ryan says he and Gypsy talked that Thursday night, the night that everything happened, that she told him in the car that she wasn't happy. That night they went home. He says they talked. He says they kind of made up. He thought everything was okay. He said he came home the next day from work and Gypsy had moved into the spare bedroom. And she told him she would be staying in the spare bedroom. He said then the day after that, he came home and she was gone. He said he hasn't seen her since. He said he knew being married to Gypsy would be hard because she's never experienced any type of life before, any independence or anything like that. But I'm like, and you did not try to give her any leadway either. Like knowing that she never had no independence, you should have tried to give her a little bit. Now, back at Mia's house, Christy says that Gypsy, she's like, you went from one prison to another to another. Like you went from, your mom, your life with your mom being like a prison to going to prison to getting out of prison, being into a marriage that is like a prison. Well, Mia interrupts her mom and is like, Mom, I wouldn't go that far. Like you're going a little too far. And Christy says, well, Gypsy never experienced life like she should have. Getting out of prison, she should have had that chance to have a normal life, but she wasn't allowed that. She told Gypsy, she said, now you have to decide what you're going to do. Back at Ryan's house, he says that Gypsy is a very impressionable girl. He says people are already influencing her. People are putting stuff in her head that's poisoning their marriage. He says, I know her family doesn't want me to see her. Where she is at, I would not feel welcome. He says, I want to show up, but at the same time, I want to respect her family. And he says, they want to paint me as controlling. So if I do show up, that fits their narrative even more. And he says, I'm sad. I'm really sad. Then we flip to Gypsy. She's doing her little confessional where she says she thought she could be happy with Ryan, but she also thought their marriage would be different than what it was. She says, I've always been a people pleaser. She says, this is the one time that I'm going to take a step back from everything, reevaluate the situation, and then come back when I have a clear mind to know if this is what I honestly want. We then jump back with Gypsy talking to Mia and Christy. She tells them, she says, I'm not going to say I'm getting a divorce because I haven't made my mind up yet. But she says that she will, but she says she will say the living environment she was in, she just could not get her mind right. She was not happy in that environment. Christy and Gypsy go to Gypsy's apartment. Ryan is not there. I will say that it looks like this is not funny. Ryan was obviously depressed. Like the house was a mess. Like his clothes were all over the place. There was candy and food and Gypsy even said, God, I go away for a few days and like the house goes to crap. But they go to the apartment and she is getting, her things. The dog Pixie is super excited to see Gypsy. And who else peeped the baby outfit in the closet? That's literally a baby outfit in the closet. Did y'all see that? When she was getting her clothes, there was literally a baby outfit in the closet. I'm like, what? They were already planning. They were literally like they were already buying baby clothes just in case for future babies. Anyways, I guess she didn't take it. Anyways, Gypsy is gathering her things. Christy asked Gypsy, she's like, do you want to bring your New Orleans Saints jersey? And Gypsy says, no, because it got Anderson on the back. I'm like, why not take it? You're like, whoa, okay then. She's like, no, I don't want that. It's got the name Anderson on the back. Now, before leaving, Gypsy does sit down on the bed She cries. She's holding Pixie. She apologizes to Pixie. She's like, I'm sorry, Pixie. And a voiceover, Gypsy says, if it's separation, that's one thing. If it's divorce, that's another thing. She says, is it the right thing? I don't know. Is it the wrong thing? I don't know. And that was the end. And then next week, we see Mia getting on to Christy for telling Gypsy about Ken. She's like, you had no business telling Gypsy about Ken. And she's like, well, she needed to know that. And Mia said, well, Ken could have told her that, not you. You should have stayed out of it. We see Gypsy and Ken getting matching tattoos. We see Ryan, tears in his eyes, saying, the matching tattoos really just broke my heart. We see Gypsy and Ken reconnect. We see Gypsy on the phone telling Ryan, I want a divorce, and in 6 to 9 months, I will be with Ken. 6 to 9 months, she's gonna be 6 to 9 months pregnant. That's what's really gonna happen. She, I guess her plan was 6 to 9 months, but it was more like 6 to 9 hours, and she was with Ken. 6 to 9, yeah, 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 yep. But I'm like, at least she tried 6 to 9 hours. You know what I'm saying? I feel like Ryan was calling around and holding her accountable, but doing it in a passive because he was afraid to lose her. Maybe some things, maybe I would have to go back and look at that. I will tell you there were things that he did that I agreed with, but there were things that he did that I was like, mm-mm. Danielle says, I find it hard to feel sorry for anyone in this situation, given that they are adults and the behaviors in this series feel so, yeah, that's so true. It's not really like you're watching, Ryan is 38, I think. And Gypsy's like, what, 30? She's 32. Gypsy saying Ken and Gypsy were just friends at first was obvious more than friends. Yeah, 32 going on 17, exactly. Thanks for all the validation. It is such a sticky situation, but the show is telling us a lot about everyone involved, right? I don't feel bad for Ryan because I think he's not being honest. And I think he got with her hoping she'd generate money a lot. So he misses the money, not so much her, but he'll get his divorce money. She's trying to get alimony on him, but I'm like, that ain't gonna happen, Captain. No way, Jose. She really did request alimony from him. And I'm like, I think you have to be married for like a certain amount of time to even qualify for alimony. And when you're making more money than him, like that doesn't really make too much sense. Um, so this was a pretty interesting episode. I mean, props for Gypsy for trying to tell him. I think Gypsy was like, I think Gypsy was like, I'm gonna tell him, I'm gonna tell him, I'm gonna tell him. She told him, I'm not happy. What if I don't want to work on it? Do you want to work on it? No. I feel like I could be happy somewhere else. But then when they got home, I think Ryan talked to her, and because she is a people pleaser, because I am very much a people pleaser, like 100%. Like if you talk to me too much, you can convince me to do anything. You know what I'm saying? I mean, within like, don't ask me to do something for you because I'll be like, no, I can't. And if you're like, but I really need you to, I'm like, no, I really can't, but I really need, oh, all right, never mind. All right, I will. So I feel like they got home and he talked to her, and because he said, we got home, we talked, and everything was fine. I think it wasn't that he's like, we made up, everything was fine. I don't really think that was how she felt. I think they got home, he talked to her, and she caved. And but she knew while caving, I don't want to do this. Like I want to leave. I told you, I got the balls enough to tell you, and now you're making me go back on it because you're like talking me out of it. But when he went to work the next day, she was like, you know what? She probably called like Christy and was like, when can y'all come get me? And Christy was probably like, oh, he can't come get you until Thursday. And she was like, I'll just move into the spare bedroom until then. So he come home the first day. She's in the spare bedroom. She's like, I'm just gonna stay in here. I feel like she already was making plans to like get the hell out of Dodge. You know what I'm saying? cave to get him out of and maybe so, yeah. I feel like it was one of the who about Ryan? It's one of those things where face to face, she just couldn't hold it together. Like he kept questioning her, kept talking to her, and she just y'all notice Ryan says that a lot. It's one of those things. Do we know how long Christy and her dad has been together? Oh my goodness. A long time. I can tell you this. So Rod left Dee Dee for Christy. Okay. Um, Not only that, but okay, Rod and Christy and Dee Dee all went to school together. Rod was friends with like Christy's brothers or something. But Christy and Rod always kind of had a thing for each other. But they didn't do anything for a while. Dee Dee liked Rod. It was like he was just basically sleeping with her. And she come up pregnant. It wasn't serious. Like Rod and Dee Dee were not serious. Rod's mother worked at the library. Gypsy went to the library and rented a book on how to get pregnant. He rented a book. So Dee Dee went to the and rented a book. Went to the library, rented a book on how to get pregnant. When she returned the book, Rod's mom saw her bring the book in. So Rod's mom knew that Rod and Dee Dee had been hanging out a good bit. I don't think she knew that they were necessarily bumping uglies, but she knew that they had been hanging out. So she went to Rod and was like, hey, like the girl that you're like talking to, she just returned a book to the library on how to get pregnant. Well, guess what? Lo and behold, shortly thereafter, she was pregnant. So even though they were not like super serious, he decided to do what he was supposed to do and he married her. However, the night of their wedding, after the wedding, he went to either a bar or a restaurant, something, and Christy was there. And he talked to Christy and told Christy that like it wasn't a love situation for him. It was he needed to do the right thing. And I want to say I heard they kissed that night, the night that he married Dee Dee. But anyways, so they always had a thing. Christy and Rod have always had a thing. And then they were together. Rod and Dee Dee were married, and Rod worked off, so he went off a lot. Um, I don't know if she was still, I think she was still pregnant. And he finally was like, I can't do this. And he sat her down and was like, listen, I'm not in love with you. I'm sorry. And he left. Did Gypsy ever see Christy before she went to prison? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah. So Rod left Diddy for Christy and they got together like immediately. And Rod went to some of the Gypsy stuff. Like Rod has pictures with Gypsy when she was little. It was just few and far and in between. Like Christy would call Dee Dee to try to check on Gypsy and try to say, like, when can we come visit? And Dee Dee would set dates and be like, how about y'all come, y'all can come the week of this day, or this week of the month. And so they would set everything up. And then the day before, Dee Dee would call and say, oh, she's sick. Y'all can't come because, like she's sick and she don't need to have visitors. So something would always come up. But yeah, they did see her like a handful of times as she was growing up. I think Gypsy got pregnant on purpose. Deja vu. Mm-hmm. Uh, um, it does seem like Gypsy is kind of reminding us of Dee Dee a little bit. He paid child support. Let me see. Rod and Gypsy Blanchard as a child. I mean, they have a picture of Gypsy like holding Mia in their house. See, there he is with his fine self. I'm just kidding. Anyways, uh, wait, don't that kinda look like Ken? Like, cut his hair down a little bit and, like, maybe push his chin over a little bit? Where I saw Gypsy much more when she was younger prior to Diddy moving. Yes, yes, so before they moved away, he did see her more. Then when they moved away, they tried to see her, and it was very difficult because Diddy made it difficult. Okay, let's see, so there they are. Yep. Yeah, Ryan said he paid Diddy child support until she died. Yep. And not only that, but the day that he found out that Didi was dead, money like, it was direct deposit, like, it came directly out of his check. It came out like, another payment came out the day that he found out Didi was dead. Yeah, Rye wouldn't play into the scam, he was a threat, for sure, for sure. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to just find some pictures for us to look at of them. And what's so crazy is Didi was pretty when she was young. She was like a beauty queen or something, and then man, she got older and she just looked so different. That's what I'm saying. Ryan looked like Dee Dee and Ken looks like Ryan. That I said that. Like Gypsy likes people that looks like her parents because Ryan Anderson looked like Dee Dee, especially the side view, and then Ken looks like Ryan. Yeah, I also think Rod is such a cutie, and I think he's just such a good man. I think the fact that he is such a good man is one of the reasons why I'm like his fine self. Because a good man with good morals and ethics is like attractive to me, you know? Let's see. I want to find the picture of her with Mia. I don't know where it is. But yeah, he saw Gypsy, just not a whole lot. Sorry, I meant to ask, were Diddy and Rod the same age? Let me see. How old would Diddy Blanchard be today? All right, let me see. So she would be 57, and Rod is 50. How old did I say that Diddy was? Because he is 50. How old did I say that she would have been? 57, yeah. Yeah, there is an age gap. And he was like 17. Yeah. I swear he said on his 18th birthday he woke up and told Diddy he wasn't in love with her. He would always do right by she and Gypsy, but he couldn't stay in the marriage. That's accurate. Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's what I remember hearing too. Where is the picture of her with Mia? I remember seeing the picture of her with Mia and she was holding Mia, but I thought it was a baby doll for the longest until Mia said it on like one of the documentaries and it popped up and I was like, oh my God, I thought that was a baby doll all this time. Let me find. Is this not the cutest picture? Y'all, look at that. Not that I don't think Gypsy is like manipulative. I mean, she gets it from her mom, but I do think Rod was a really good guy. Is a really good guy. And like Christy, said like as far as they know, like Gypsy can't walk, and then they see on the news her walking into court, and they're like, "What?" This was Dee Dee when she died. I mean, this is kind of how she looked when she passed, and this is like so. Y'all saw pictures of her before when Gypsy was younger. Very beautiful woman. Christy said when uh, they found Dee Dee and Gypsy was still missing, and it was like on the news. Uh, this photo comes across the news, and it's Dee Dee and Gypsy. And Christy was able to get in touch with Rod at work because Rod works on boats, and usually it's very hard to get in touch with somebody on a boat. Like you can't unless it's an emergency. But she was able to get in touch with Rod on the boat. He called her back, and she's telling him what's happening. She's like, "Get your laptop, like look at the news." So he pulls it up and he's like, "Who is that woman with Gypsy? Like, who is that?" And she's like, "Rod, that's Dee Dee." And he's like, "What?" And it was like a picture like this, Dee Dee looking like this. He was like, "That's Dee Dee?" She's like, "Yeah, that's Dee Dee." So Rod was shocked to see that Dee Dee, like her change in looks, you know? But anyways, you guys, it's late. It's 10 o'clock. I gotta get off here. I spent all day working on this and another video. If you guys haven't seen the other video, I uploaded a video earlier today. It's a video about Mama June. It gives a lot of information about like the court case that's coming up about how when June lost custody of Alana, the things that Pumpkin alleged, reasonings why June did not deserve custody of her own child. So if you haven't watched it, check it out. Some things I need to dig into because when Pumpkin fought for custody of Alana, she literally said that Mama June had mental and psychological issues, and I'm like, what are they? Like, what are those? Because we know she has physical disabilities, like she can't see, but like, what mental and psychological problems does June have? And if it interfered with her having Alana, then wouldn't it be called into question for her to have Caitlin? So you guys check that video out if you haven't. You guys know we're going to continue to do our recaps. We do our Mama June recaps on Monday. We do our Gypsy Blanchard recaps on Tuesday, and then the rest throughout the week we just do our reality TV news, entertainment news, trending topic news. So if you are new here, please hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you. Also, on your way out, hit that thumbs up button. Some dumb dream. I like that name. I have those. Says Gypsy does not know how to fool people. Probably the only thing her mother Gypsy does know how to fool people. Probably the only thing her mother taught her. I agree. Hey Lulu, you missed me. I'm ready to see what happens with court. Me too. Anyways, you guys, like, share, subscribe, but make sure you hit the thumbs up button on the way out. Also, make sure you are still subscribed. YouTube does like to unsubscribe people, you guys, and we are so close to 100K. I am trying so hard to hit 100K. So if you don't mind, make sure you subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys.